Favorite two legislators.
The Boy Scouts Daily Commission.
There you go. I swear.
I want to make the motion we start at 5 o'clock.
Morning.
I'll be here. I was up before 5.
Stanley will not.
That would,
This time was going to defeat me, didn't it?
yeah, that's
It's just
But
making
that-
you crazier.
that's before the rooster crows, and that would be a violation of the Companion Animal Committee procedures. So, at any rate, well, good morning and welcome to the Companion Animal Subcommittee of the Virginia Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. Did I get that right? There we go.
You did.
All right. I'm going to start with Senator Stanley because he's going to do some talking on his bill, and then I think he's going to suggest a motion, and then we'll get to Senator Boysko's bill. Senator Stanley, come and tell us about Senate Bill 1230.
Well, first, Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me this early in the morning. It's always wonderful to see what it looks like in the morning at this time. I was wondering to myself whether Senator Stewart's bill would have made it light out, and then I figured out, doing the math, that it would be darker, actually. So I'm glad
Actually,
to be
we
here.
could fool you, and you wouldn't be here for your bill.
And that's what I thought you were trying to do, and I give you a lot of credit. When I heard 7:30, I knew that was for me.
There you
So
go.
thank you, and it's nice to see you this morning. Senate Bill 1230 basically is a bill that arises out of animal testing facilities. As you know, under the Animal Welfare Act and under certain regulations with the USDA, any testing facility in the Commonwealth of Virginia must comply with certain requirements in terms of the treatment of the animal, or in terms of how they conduct the experiments themselves around encasing and focusing on the animal itself. So this establishes some restrictions, it establishes civil penalties for these animal testing facilities that have received from the federal government citations for noncompliance, critical and non-critical. They have to, the facilities have to register each year with the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, VDACS as we always call it. They pay the registration fee, and they report to VDACS any citations received by the federal government for violations of the Federal Animal Welfare Act or regulations adopted thereunder. I think, as we move into the 21st century, we need to make sure that we're taking, we understand at this point in time, and Mr. Chairman, you and I have talked about, this necessary evil. I probably stress more the evil, you stress more the necessary when we have those discussions. But it does, I think, as human beings, as we go forward using animals in testing and to try to find breakthroughs in medicine or whatnot, that those facilities be held to the standard in the Commonwealth of Virginia, which is now a part of the policy of the Commonwealth of Virginia, which is we act humanely. We are the stewards of these animals, and we should act responsibly. Now, in looking at this also too, I've had discussions with, of course, our higher ed, our colleges and universities, and of course they're not really happy with this. And I can understand their concern. They offered, I think on the House side, a notice provision bill. So this bill in the House, in its form on the House side with Delegate Webert, has changed into a notice provision. That what basically that would do is require those institutions, those testing facilities to publish, which I think is a good thing, to give the public notice of these violations. And certainly when we have the notice of the violations, then we can understand better where we are. What I then thought about, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, was maybe looking at the notice bill, and if that goes through, it got through committee yesterday with some resistance, but not totally. Enough to get it out, is that we need to have explanations, because these are institutions that carry our name: Virginia Tech, University of Virginia, VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. And so I think we as the government that also subsidizes them in many ways, gives them monies, need to have explanations on exactly what is the root cause of these violations. How does it happen, and what steps are they taking to correct these, so that ultimately what this bill is trying to do is to reduce and or eliminate these kind of violations, especially when they harm the animals that are being tested, or they have an indirect or direct consequential harm. So I would ask that this bill would be carried over for a year with a letter from the chairman of Ag, or maybe a letter from you, Mr. Chairman. You're all-powerful, all-knowing guy, asking for an explanation on each one of these violations that we've seen. We've seen, I mean, one institution has 10 criticals, non-criticals. And so let's have an explanation. How does this happen? And I think we as a General Assembly can come back through the chairman's letter and the response to it and kind of make these decisions next year with fresh eyes.
And can we also, in that letter,
Yes,
Mr.
go ahead.
Chairman, in that letter, maybe we can capture some of the intent of this bill in addition to their past actions,
Well-
so we can figure out what.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I must tell you, as a Republican, I always totally, every time agree with Senator Favola. And I don't know how I get there, but I just do. So thank you.
One of the, did you have a,
Yes.
Senator Hackworth?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. And
May I say, Mr. Chairman, Senator Pillion has really put on some weight.
and he has become a lot more handsome.
Mr. Chairman, indeed. Indeed, he has.
So, and again, I appreciate the intent of the patron and the concern, and I share same sentiments, of course. I think this committee does a wonderful job in trying to thread that needle, and I appreciate our colleagues. One thing that I would like to recommend to this committee is to go to Virginia Tech and to look at the facility, the testing facility. They have reached out an invitation, say, come and see us. Let this committee come and see what we do, how we treat our animals. And, I think that seeing's believing. I think, last year and the subsequent year before that, it was the same. And it was horrifying, some of the things that was seen in some facilities. So I think on the flip side, there is good facilities out there. There is good universities that's doing a wonderful job and treating animals humanely and for the benefit and the good of the people. So I would like to ask our committee if we could coordinate that with Virginia Tech, and I'll be happy to do that. They're in my district, to maybe get a site visit where we could come and.
Mr. Chairman, I would tell the gentleman, Senator Hackworth, that I have spent time on a road trip with these two in Southwest Virginia, and it is the best time you'll ever have. So that's right.
Well, I think that's a great idea, pending certain people's reelections. That we could go.
What he's saying, Hackworth, is this may not be the year.
The one thing we've learned, I think, from the Envigo experience is that the USDA, over many years, just never penalized. They always said, "Oh, you got to fix this. We'll work with you," and what have you. And it got fairly, kind of a casual, I guess, relationship. And then, when a new administration came in, there was emphasis put on that, and they certainly got more serious. And it led to, the efforts we made here last year, which led to the closure of that facility.
Right.
And
which was great work on your all's part.
And so, ultimately, as we go through this, I think that we need to have a situation of graduated sanctions, and I would like to see individuals held accountable by their organizations, and not just the organization, because sometimes it is the acts of one person that can control things, or that can create these problems, and I guess the proper motion would be, because we can't carry a bill over, would be to PBI, and with a letter from the chairman that the gentleman could help write.
Yes,
but
sir.
before I do that, before we take that motion, I'd like to hear from the folks in the audience who've taken the time to come here today to comment on the intent of Senator Stanley's proposed motion here. So. Could I have
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Holly Hazard with the Virginia Federation of Humane Societies, and we are in strong support of this legislation. I understand that any time the legislature is looking at placing more regulations on a facility, that you need to weigh. We all need to weigh the pros and the cons of that. I would just ask you to remember the animals who are involved here, and I know that all three of you are cognizant of that. of that. The legislation, when it seeks to stop a protocol, is talking about critical noncompliance of the institution, and that can only be triggered if there are severe adverse consequences for the animals involved. And so this would not be a question of somebody forgets to feed an animal for a day or somebody forgets to water an animal. This is where we've got serious adverse health impacts on the animals, and to have a response to that, to say that you need to stop doing your research now and to focus on the care of the animals, I don't think is an unreasonable thing for a civilized society. My second point is I love the idea of you all going and seeing these institutions and really getting a sense of, over my 40 years of doing this, I visited many institutions, labs, farms, whatever, and you certainly get a very different sense of what's going on there. But I would encourage you to think of, when you're going there, that they are putting on their Sunday best, as we all do when we get visitors, and the animals are there during the Thursday morning when you're getting the kids ready for school and nobody's quite got breakfast yet and things are in chaos. And they're living through this entire experience. And so having that experience will be great, but it's not necessary. I think that the USDA violation record is probably a stronger indication of what's actually going on day to day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Good morning,
Just who
Mr.
you are.
Chairman.
Introduce yourself to the
Yes,
committee,
my name
the
is Daphne Nekminovich. I'm representing more than 141,000 members and supporters of PETA in Virginia. I want to thank Senator Stanley for his work on this, and we do support the motion. I just wanted to also reiterate this bill's intention was really just to put teeth into the Animal Welfare Act for facilities that had violations of the Animal Welfare Act, and the USDA, as we saw within Vigo, is not particularly known for its strict enforcement. So once you get a violation, it's not that easy to get a violation with the USDA. And it's certainly not easy to get 12 violations with the USDA. So most of these institutions are funded with public monies, and I think it's important for Virginians to know that we can count on our state to have some enforcement authority when the federal government fails. But we do support the motion, and we hope you support it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think, at some point in time, I would like to see a bill that comes, out of this, that the universities and what have you can share in the ownership of. That's always a best practice, is to have the folks who are to be regulated to be part of that process. Just as an aside, in my career in running a juvenile detention center, which operates under the same idea of regulations and what have you, is that the department always asked us to the table to say, what's practical, what's reasonable, what is what will work to the best interests of the kids, and for the staff to be able to, to work through, these things. And I think could be an important part of our visit, is to get that feedback and to have those universities participate in the process, as opposed to it, kind of coming down from on high. And that has proven to be a very effective way. And we have one of the best juvenile detention systems in the country, partially as a result of that. And so I think that's great. So did you want to add something?
I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, we can always direct VDACs or whoever we choose to identify to meet with stakeholders, to convene a group of stakeholders. Mm-hmm. Maybe you could put that in your letter.
Certainly. That's it. Yes.
Molly Armis, I'm the Virginia State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. Just very grateful for Senator Stanley for all of his work on this. We support the motion, and again, this bill was really just about ensuring that people are complying with federal law, which they already have to. So, yeah. Thank you.
And like I say, I would just like this to lead to a bill that everybody participated in, and not just be a shot over the bow here, because we know that shots over the bow don't always work when it comes to animal welfare. So,
tell me about it.
It's all right. So the motion would be the PBI with a letter from Senator Peterson, Chairman of the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, written by
I'll do it.
Senator Stanley, who will make sure to get all the bells and whistles into it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I will so move, but I would like that last clause stricken. So.
All right. All right. Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, we have to do a roll call vote. That's right. Okay.
It's actual vote.
Roll call vote.
Senator Favola,
Aye.
Senator Hackworth,
Aye.
Senator Marsden.
Aye.
Ayes 3, no 0.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and may I say, and we remember now in Vigo, and we also remember the 2 to 3 years that it took to get us to where we are, and those kind of things usually end up with good results. So I want to thank this committee and its important work. It's important to me, and it's important to a lot of people out there. But, we're human beings, and we can do better, and
Well,
that's what we're trying to do.
You've been a big part of moving the whole idea of better animal welfare forward in this state, as has Senator Boysko. And
I blame my children.
There you go.
They're the ones
Yeah.
that got
And,
interested in this stuff. So. But I am.
And how's
Very interesting.
Yes,
And
I was
how's the-
deflecting.
and how is the renamed Daisy doing?
Actually, because you've been so good this year, I called her Marzi when I went home last weekend. So the two beagles are incredibly wonderful. They're best friends with the cats. They've never seen cats before, so that's like the most amazing, magical animal ever. Cats demonstrated and showed them how they can walk on the back of the couch, which is a little bit complicating. And the dogs still don't understand how they can't jump from the ground to the top of the kitchen table like the cats can. But
There
they're
you go.
working that out.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Live long and prosper.
Now I'm gonna watch my friend Boysko's bill.
Okay, there you go. Next we have, thank you, Senator Stanley. Next we have Senator Boysko and Senate Bill 1271,
Yes, sir.
Animal Testing Whistleblower Protections Created.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a sub and then have identified a number of potential amendments to that sub. So I move the sub, and I'll be happy to explain it.
Okay, well, I think one of us has to move this up.
So moved.
Oh, sorry.
Have a second? Okay, all in favor of
Say
the
aye.
sub, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, there we go.
So this is a bill that would start creating a system to compile inventory about animal use in research setting. And this substitute completely eliminates all the whistleblower language, so lines 33, I think it's 35 through 128 are completely gone. It inadvertently removed the definition of animal, which we would want to put back in. It added language to clarify that veterinary practice, ag operations, agricultural, educational events are excluded. And it also removed all of the language about oversight authority and provisions on line 26 and 31. And then I have some other ideas because for the very first time this morning, I heard from some of our friends in the research and development system. And
So what, you have proposed amendments to this. Does the staff have those, or did you
they
want to
don't,
report them?
we just,
Amendment in the nature of
so that's the substitute that I'm hoping that you will
Which-
approve. And then
you've got further
I have some further,
Amendments,
yeah.
Okay, well, we've adopted the substitute. so
Okay, great.
We would just need, some of the amendments and
Yeah, would you go over those?
Sure. Yes. So we need to put the definition of animal back in, which I think was inadvertently removed. Animal means any live vertebrate, non-human animal. And that was in the original text on line 19.
Okay.
And then I am willing to eliminate 31 through 33, the plan outlining. And there is a discussion with the facilities about talking about the funding, and they agreed that we could continue talking about that if we could gently move the,
31 through 33? All of that?
yes, sir.
Okay.
There's no plan needed.
So what it basically would be just a reporting bill to talk about really duplicating, for the majority of it, what they do with the USDA. And again, if we could just talk about why I'm bringing the bill before you. This past December, the Animal Welfare Act was updated for the first time in a very long time. it's the FDA Modernization Act was passed. It's been 85 years since it was updated. We know that there are now more modern, effective methods like computer modeling, cell usage that can mimic organ function. And so as the federal government is going to be funding, this year's federal budget included $5 million for some of these new programs that are aimed at reducing animal testing by helping to develop and encourage industries to adopt new testing procedures. But we don't know exactly in Virginia who's testing on animals and what the scope is. And so this is an attempt to start to monitor and identify so that we are keeping in our records.
So in effect,
Favola.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. In effect, we're going to allow the department to figure out how they will
Correct.
monitor. They can either ask for reports from these facilities, they can do spot checks, they can do all of the above.
That is correct. And one of the concerns had been raised because one of the pieces that I want, and I know my stakeholders want, is getting some information from some of the private providers. We know that they've got to register with the FDA or the USDA already, but they would like to have some further conversations about how we use that, how the language actually sounds. And so I would ask, and we have people here to talk, I would like to have some of my folks speak.
Mr. Chairman,
But again, I was not approached until 7:28 that there were problems. So
All right.
I apologize for.
All right,
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
As I read your revised, amended substitute, there's no requirement, though, to submit the report. The department doesn't have to submit the report anywhere.
Correct. That it would stay with the department. That's a foiable document.
Yeah.
An
Okay,
individual
maybe we
could
can
look
work
at
on
it.
that in the next version.
Senator Hackworth.
Okay.
There we go.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator, for coming and speaking to us about this bill. One of the things I think that is maybe troubling that I see here is, when you're talking about on lines 28 or 27, a detailed methodology for obtaining such count of animals, and then 28, the percentage of funds expended by such facility or manufacturer on such activities listed in subdivision 1 that involve the use of animals, compared with the percentage of funds spent on such activities that did not involve the use of animals. I think, and I appreciate the intent, I understand, but I think, are we maybe overreaching a little bit here with maybe trying on some of these private institutions that could put them at risk for maybe security concerns? And I don't know, I just don't want to keep extending things that could, because we all know that they do they're very important in looking at the health and the well-being. So, I really just don't want to put them at risk for some of that. How would you respond to that?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hackworth, thank you for the question. That is one of the issues that the research facilities have just told me that they would, if we could move this forward, we can work on that together collaboratively with my other stakeholders. It could be that when we get to full committee, we decide that we can't find common ground, but I'd like to, because nobody came to talk to me until 2 minutes before this started, I'd like to have the opportunity to try to find a way that we can all find
'Cause
peace in the valley.
My goal would be, in that, Senator Hackworth, is that we can kind of trend the percentage of which non-animal testing is expanding,
Right.
and the other is receding. And, it always gets difficult when you do these things as to how you apportion overhead to something. I mean, it can get pretty maddening, and that's a conversation you may want to have. But, the ultimate goal of I think a bill, like this is to make sure that every animal who enters into a testing environment is tracked and we know when it came in, what it was used for, and what its disposition was, whether it was something, a termination of the animal's life, or whether it was adopted and sent out. And, records are important because it shows trends and it shows kind of progress we're making, because, you'll have people say, yeah, you can't do animal testing without live animals, and others who say, no, you don't need any of it. And obviously the truth lies in between, and tracking the trends is what's critical, so we know how we're doing.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, also, they have to file a report with the USDA, annual report. So another thought is, why not make them file that same report with VDAX?
Mr. Chairman, that is a conversation that we had. I know that some of our speakers are hoping that we do a little bit more, but this is a conversation and it's a policy decision in the committee.
Mr. Chairman, is there a fiscal impact on this?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Favola, there is no fiscal impact, even before I greatly amended the bill.
Okay.
The reason I asked is,
It does not go to,
well, I think this could be a much better bill if you had a little bit more time to work on it.
I appreciate
And
that.
I would really, my inclination would be to pass it by for the day and have you come back next week.
Well,
do we have time to do
let's see,
that?
I don't believe we're going to have time. I think what we can do is bring it back to full, and that we will, take the bill forward. As with many of these bills, it's just part of a process, and it's going to go through. There is a bill. Is there any companion on the House side?
It was not the same. I think we made more changes than the House version did. They did not.
Advance it.
So it was
Okay.
It was not in the version that we are talking about right now.
And something like this that's a little simpler and more straightforward will undoubtedly be looked at potentially more favorably. So we have. Do I have a motion on the amendments as suggested by Senator Boysko? Motion to approve the amendments to the substitute.
So moved.
Second. Okay. The amendments,
All in favor?
the amendments are before us. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, so now
All
we've
right.
got the substitute as amended.
Okay. And so Senator Favola moves that we report the substitute
take
as
comments?
amended
Did you want to take
to the full
public
committee.
comment? Did you want to take public comments?
I have some folks here who
yes,
wanted to
that's true. You did
share
have
their
folks
thoughts.
to testify. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good morning again, Senator Marsden. Daphne with PETA, thank you so much, and thank you to Senator Boysko. I just wanted to say that we support the bill and give you just some numbers for state and federal funding to just our 5 of our public universities. And to address Senator Hackworth's comment, I think we would be very amenable to making the funding reporting aspect of the bill apply only to facilities that receive public monies. There is state and federal funding that goes for research, animal and non-animal. And just some figures from 2021, Virginia Tech received $260 million from the federal government and $60 million from the state. VCU got $160 million from the federal government and $31 million from the state. I'm not going to go through all the figures, but we're talking about tens of millions of dollars that are public monies, and all we want is just some information on what that money goes for towards. And also to answer one of your questions, the USDA report applies only to Animal Welfare Act covered animals, so those really constitute roughly 5% of the animals in laboratories, because most of the animals who undergo the experiments are not actually covered by the Animal Welfare Act. So this would seek a little bit more information about those animals as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Kara Alley here with Spotsylvania Consulting on behalf of the Virginia Pet Advocate Alliance. We just want to thank the patron for working with us to address some concerns that we had in the original legislation, but we are happy to support as amended. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Molly Armas, Virginia State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. Thank you to Senator Boysko for bringing this bill. The only thing I wanted to add was just that Senator Boysko is correct. You know, 21st century science is really rapidly moving away from animal research and moving more towards human-based technologies, which are more accurate and more effective. And so we strongly support the bill. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Holly Hazard with the Virginia Federation of Humane Societies. We strongly support the bill and certainly the amended version of the bill as presented. I just wanted to address briefly Senator Hackworth's concern about adding additional burden on businesses and research institutions. And of course, we all need to be cognizant of this, but I do want to remind the committee that these institutions are not doing research on inanimate objects. They're not inventing electric cars or new toasters, that these are sentient beings. And I believe a civilized society, that we've got an additional responsibility to those animals who are being used in the research to ensure that they're being cared for in the best way possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tabitha Treelor. I'm with the Richmond SPCA. We thank Senator Boysko for bringing this bill and think that this kind of transparency is in the public interest. And this body has a history of deciding that that information about the use of animals in the Commonwealth is in the public interest. Animal shelters for multiple decades have been reporting to VDAC's statistics on every species cared for, all of their dispositions. Those reports are public. Senator Boysko's bill doesn't quite go that far, but having this information reported to the state is in the public interest, and the state should also be encouraging innovation. And we think this is an important step for the Commonwealth to take, and hope that you will look favorably on it. Thank you.
Hey, Ross.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. Ross Scrogg with Kemper Consulting on behalf of Eastern Virginia Medical School and some of our private sector partners in animal research. We did have some concerns with the bill as introduced. We do still have some concerns with the substitute. We do appreciate Senator Boysko sort of working through those with us, and we'll continue that conversation, and hopefully we can get them sorted out before full committee next week. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Senator Boysko, any last comment?
I'll just keep it short and sweet. I mean, we have been working, we no longer test animals on cosmetics because we have better science that allows us to be accurate and innovative, and I'm very optimistic that we can make some continued progress.
Good. Well, I think it is a simplified bill. It's very clear sort of in where it's going, and I think it will have a better chance of ultimate success. And if we need further delineation of roles and responsibilities and what have you, those can be put in place later around the core of the fact that we're now getting information from these facilities as to how they operate. So with that, I believe we already had a motion and a second. So all in favor of reporting the bill?
We need a motion to report it out.
That's what we had one earlier.
No, we adopted the substitute and the amendments to the substitute. So, Mr. Chairman,
I had a premature motion, but go ahead again.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we report this bill to our parent committee.
Thank you.
As
amended.
Second. Okay, the motion is to report the substitute as amended. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I got to do roll call. There you go.
Senator Favola?
Aye.
Senator Hackworth?
Aye.
Senator Marsden?
Aye. Okay, the bill is reported to the full committee.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you all so much.
Just while I have the audience, we do things do take time. 3 years ago, we passed the bill on providing regulations for pet stores, and that That first draft has been presented by VDAX, by the VDAX board, and they received comments. And I hope that very soon now we will have those voted on and finalized. And they do have a position in place to perform these inspections. So that is a good thing. So these processes that we get into ultimately lead to good things happening. So with that, the committee will rise.
Thank you.